Hi, back to Deltora Quest. It's so good, isn't it? So there's a little bit left of chapter 4 and then we'll go on to chapter 5. The Shadow Lord will not invade, Grandfather, Anna soothed, not while the belt of Deltora protects us, and our king guards the belt. That, at least, he does for us. Jared felt a chill of fear, but he could not bring himself to tell Anna she was wrong. If she found out that the king did not wear the belt, but he kept it shut away under the care of others, she would lose the last of her hope. Oh, Endon, he thought as he went to bed that night, I cannot reach you unless you wish it. You are too well guarded, but you can reach me. Go to the hollow tree, read my note, send the signal. From that time on, before he started work each morning, Jared looked up at the tree rising against the misty cloud on the hill. He would look carefully, searching for the glint of the king's golden arrow at the top, the signal that Endon needed him. But it was a long, long time before the signal came, and by then it was too late. Chapter 5, The Enemy Strikes. Years passed and life went on. Jared and Anna married. Then old Crane died, and Jared took his place as blacksmith. Sometimes Jared almost forgot that he had ever had another life. It was as if his time in the palace had been a dream. But still, every dawn, he looked up to the tree on the hill, and still he often read the small book he had found in the palace library. Then he feared for what the future might hold. He feared for his beloved Anna and the child they were expecting. He feared for himself, for Endon, and for the whole of Deltora. One night, exactly 7 years after the night Endon was crowned, Jared tossed restlessly in his bed. It is nearly daybreak, and you have not slept, Jared, Anna said gently at last. What is troubling you? I do not know, dear heart, Jared murmured, but I cannot rest. Perhaps the room is too warm, she said, climbing out of bed. I will open the window a little more. She had pulled the curtain aside and was reaching for the window fastening when suddenly she screamed and jumped back. Jared leapt up and ran to her. There! She exclaimed, pointing as he put his arm around her. Oh, Jared, what are they? Jared stared through the window and caught his breath. In the sky above the palace on the hill, monstrous shapes were wheeling and circling. It was still too dark to see them clearly, but there was no doubt they were huge birds. There were 7. Their necks were long. Their great hooked beaks were cruel. Their mighty wings flapped clumsily but strongly, beating at the air. As Jared watched, they swooped and rose again and then separated, flying off swiftly in different directions. A name came to him, a name from the schoolroom of his past. Ak Baba, he hissed. His arm tightened around Anna's shoulders. She turned to him, her eyes wide and frightened. Ak Baba, he repeated slowly, still staring at the palace. Great birds that eat dead flesh and live for 1,000 years. 7 of them serve the Shadow Lord. Why are they here? Anna whispered. I do not know, but I fear... Jared broke off abruptly and leaned forward. He had seen something glinting brightly in the first feeble rays of the sun. For a moment he stood motionless. Then he turned to Anna, his face grim and pale. Endon's arrow is in the tree, he said. The call has come. In moments, Jared had dressed and run from the house behind the forge. He hurried up the hill to the palace, his mind racing. How was he to reach Endon? If he climbed the wall, the guards inside would certainly see him. He would be hit by a dozen arrows before he reached the ground. The cart that collected the food scraps would be of no use to him. Prandine must have guessed that Jared had used it to escape, because it was no longer permitted to enter the palace. These days it waited between the 2 sets of gates, while guards loaded it with sacks. Endon himself is the only one who can help me, Jared thought as he ran. Perhaps he will be watching for me, waiting for me. But as he slowed, panting, in the sight of the palace gates, he could see they were firmly closed, and the road outside was deserted. Jared moved closer, his spine prickling. The long grass that ringed the palace walls whispered in the breeze of dawn. He could be walking into a trap. Perhaps at any moment guards would spring from their hiding places in the grass and lay hands on him. Perhaps Endon had at last decided to betray him to Prandine. His feet brushed something lying in the dust of the road. He looked down and he saw a child's wooden arrow. A small piece of paper had been rolled around the arrow shaft and tied there. His heart beating hard, Jared picked up the arrow and pulled away the paper, but as he flattened it out and looked at it, his excitement died. It was just a child's drawing. Some palace child had been playing a game, practicing shooting arrows over the wall, as he and Endon had once done. Jared screwed up the paper in disgust and threw it to the ground. He looked around again at the closed gates, the empty road. Still there was no movement, no sign. There was nothing but the wooden arrow lying in the dust and the little ball of paper rolling slowly away from him, driven by the breeze. He stared at it, and the foolish little rhyme came back to him. Strange, he thought idly. Wake the bear, do not fear. Scurry, mouse, into your house. Lift the lid, be glad you did. Instructions a small child could chant and remember. An idea seized him. He ran after the paper and snatched it up again. He smoothed out the creases and looked at it more closely, this time seeing two things he had overlooked before. The paper was yellowed with age, and the writing, though childish, was strangely familiar. This is the way Endon used to print when he was small, he thought in wonder, and Endon drew the picture too, I am sure of it. Suddenly he realized what must have happened. Endon had little time, yet he wanted to send Jared a message, so he snatched up one of his old childhood drawings and sent it over the wall. He had used a child's wooden arrow so the guards would take no notice if they saw it lying on the road. And if Jared was right, Endon had not chosen just any drawing. This one had special meaning for him. Why else would he have kept it? Wake the bear, do not fear. Jared waited no longer. With the paper clutched in his hand, he left the road and moved left, following the road. The road was out of sight by the time he found what he was searching for. Even overgrown with long grass and shadowed by a clump of straggly bushes, the shape of the huge rock was clear. It really did exactly look like a sleeping animal. Jared forced his way through the undergrowth to the rock. He saw that at one end, where the bear's nose rested on its paws, the grass grew less strongly than it did anywhere else. Why would that be, unless... Time to wake up, old bear, Jared muttered aloud. He ran to the place, threw himself to his knees, and began pulling at the weak grass. It came away easily, and as he scrabbled in the earth beneath it, Jared realized with a wave of relief he had been right. There was only a thin layer of soil here. Beneath it was a large, round metal plate. It took only moments for his powerful hands to uncover the plate completely and pull it aside. A dark hole was revealed. Its walls were lined with stone. In wonder, Jared realized he had found the entrance to a tunnel. Scurry, mouse, into your house. He knew what he must do. He lay flat on his stomach and wriggled into the hole, pulling himself forward on his elbows until the space broadened and his way became easier. So now the mouse in the mouse hole, he thought grimly as he crawled along in the darkness. Let us hope there is no cat waiting on the other end. For a short time, the tunnel sloped downwards. Then it became more level, and Jared realized he was moving through the center of the hill. The air was still, the walls around him were ancient stone, and the blackness was complete. He crawled on, losing all track of time. At last the tunnel ended in a steep set of stone steps that led upwards. His heart thudding, Jared began to climb blindly. He had to feel his way up, one step at a time. Then, without warning, the top of his head hit a hard stone. With a shock, he realized the way above was blocked. He could go no further. Hot panic flared in him. Had this been a trap after all? Were guards even now creeping through the tunnel after him, knowing they would find him cowering here with no hope of escape? Then, through the confusion of his thoughts, he remembered. Lift the lid. Be glad you did. The panic died. Jared stretched up his arms, pushed firmly, and felt the stone above his head move. He pushed harder, then staggered and nearly fell as with a grating sound, the stone moved smoothly aside. He climbed the last few steps and crawled out of the blackness into a soft, flickering light. Who are you? Barked a deep, angry voice. A tall, shimmering figure was looming over him. Jared blinked up at it. After being so long in the darkness, his eyes were watering, dazzled by the light. My name is Jared, he cried. Stay back. He scrambled to his feet, blindly feeling for his sword. Then suddenly, with a rustle of rich silk and the clinking of golden ornaments, the figure was falling to its knees before him. Oh, Jared, how could I not have known you? The voice cried. For the sake of our old friendship, I beg you, forgive the past. You are the only one I can trust. Please, please help us. And then, only then, did Jared realize the man at his feet was Endon. Yikes.